In the heart of the 1980s, Stockholm stood as a city caught between the old world's charm and the new era's relentless march. It was a time of political tensions, both domestically and abroad, with the Cold War casting a long shadow over Europe. The Swedish capital, with its cobblestone streets and modern aspirations, seemed a world apart from these global dramas, yet it was not immune to the undercurrents of change. Amidst this backdrop, there was a sense of unease that whispered through the corridors of power and the quiet cafes alike. It was an age where secrets were currency and trust a luxury few could afford. In this world of contrasts, a young journalist was about to stumble upon a story that would not only shake the foundations of their understanding, but also put them in the crosshairs of a dangerous game. This journalist, inexperienced but driven by a relentless curiosity, worked for a modest local newspaper. They had a knack for asking the right questions, but lacked the cynicism that often colored the lenses of their more seasoned colleagues. Little did they know, their next assignment would plunge them into a web of intrigue that would test their resolve and their very safety. It was an ordinary morning when the journalist received an anonymous tip, a whisper of something sinister lurking beneath the polished surface of Swedish politics. At first, it seemed like just another lead. But as they would soon discover, this was no ordinary story. It was a narrative woven with threads of power, betrayal, and a mystery that would lead them down a path from which there was no turning back. As Stockholm carried on, oblivious to the storm brewing in its midst, the journalist began to piece together a puzzle that would reveal a shocking truth. Little did they know, their pursuit of this story would not only bring them face to face with the darkest elements of human nature, but also cast them into the shadow of a conspiracy that had long thrived unseen. Thus begins the tale of the Shadow of Stockholm, a journey into the heart of a mystery where nothing is as it seems, and the truth is a prize both perilous and elusive. The journalist, let's call them Alex, started their day like any other in the bustling office of the Stockholm Daily. It was a small publication, often overshadowed by the giants of Swedish media, but it prided itself on diligent, honest reporting. Alex, eager to make a mark, was often the first to arrive and the last to leave. That morning, the editor called Alex into a cramped, paper-strewn office. "I've got something for you," the editor said, sliding an envelope across the desk. Came in anonymously. "Might be nothing, but it smells like a story." The envelope contained a cryptic note and a photograph. The note hinted at a scandal involving high-ranking officials, with no names but just enough detail to tantalize. The photograph showed a shadowy figure meeting with a known politician in what appeared to be a clandestine rendezvous. Alex felt a surge of excitement. This could be their big break, a chance to step out of the shadows of mundane reporting. They began their investigation with fervor, starting with the basics. Tracing the photograph, digging into public records, and trying to identify the shadowy figure. However, the deeper Alex dug, the more they realized this was no ordinary scandal. The leads were slippery, like trying to grasp at smoke. Sources were tight-lipped or outright fearful. It was clear that whatever this story was, it reached far deeper than simple political corruption. One evening, after hours of fruitless research, Alex decided to take a different approach. They visited one of Stockholm's older, dimly lit pubs, known to be a haunt for political insiders. Here, amidst the clink of glasses and the murmur of conversation, Alex hoped to find someone willing to talk. It was in this pub that Alex first encountered Eric, a middle-aged man with a face that spoke of too many late nights and too many secrets. Eric was initially reluctant to speak, but after a few drinks, he began to open up. He spoke in hushed tones about a group within the government, a group that was not just bending the rules, but rewriting them entirely. As Alex listened, they realized this story was more than a political scandal. It was a glimpse into a hidden world of power and manipulation. A world where the fate of a nation could be decided not in the public eye, but in the shadows. Returning to their cramped apartment that night, Alex felt a mix of exhilaration and unease. They were on the brink of uncovering something monumental, but there was a nagging sense of danger, a feeling that they were treading on forbidden ground. This feeling was only compounded the next morning when Alex found their apartment had been suddenly searched. Nothing was taken, but the message was clear. Someone was watching, and they did not appreciate prying eyes. Undeterred but more cautious, Alex pressed on, determined to unravel the mystery. Little did they know, they were about to be drawn into a labyrinth of deception and danger, where every step forward could be a step into the abyss. The story of Shadow of Stockholm was just beginning, and Alex, the unsuspecting journalist, was at its center. As the autumn leaves began to paint Stockholm's streets in shades of amber and gold, Alex's investigation into the mysterious political group deepened. The initial thrill of a potential breakthrough had given way to a constant gnawing anxiety. The subtle search of their apartment was a stark reminder of the risks involved. Undeterred, Alex continued to chase down leads. They spent days buried in archives and nights scouring the darker corners of the city for information. Each piece of the puzzle only seemed to raise more questions. The group's influence appeared to extend far beyond simple political machinations, hinting at connections within the police force, judiciary, and even the media. One chilly evening, as Alex was leaving the office, a stranger approached them. "Be careful," the stranger whispered, pressing a small envelope into Alex's hand before disappearing into the crowd. Inside the envelope was a single cryptic sentence. "The roots of power are deeper than you think." This warning only fueled Alex's determination. They began to take extra precautions, varying their routines and meeting sources in obscure locations. But the more they tried to conceal their movements, the more they felt the weight of unseen eyes upon them. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. While interviewing an old political activist, Alex learned about a secret meeting scheduled to take place in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Risking it all, Alex decided to investigate. The night of the meeting, Alex crept into the warehouse, armed with a camera and a notepad. Hiding in the shadows, they witnessed a gathering of influential figures, some of whom were recognizable faces from the government and business world. The conversation they overheard was chilling. It was not just about control or corruption, it was about reshaping Sweden's very future, manipulating events and public opinion to suit their agenda. The group spoke of a coming change, a plan that would cement their power. Alex tried to document everything, but as they were about to leave, a sudden noise betrayed their presence. In a panic, they fled the warehouse, chased by unknown assailants. Narrowly escaping, Alex realized the stakes were higher than they had ever imagined. The following day, the journalist's world was rocked again. The Prime Minister of Sweden was found dead in his home. Official reports called it a heart attack, but Alex couldn't shake the feeling that it was connected to the shadowy group and their sinister plans. This wasn't just a story anymore, it was a lethal game of power and intrigue. Alex knew they had to tread carefully. Exposing the group was no longer just about journalistic integrity, it was a matter of life and death. The shadow of Stockholm was growing darker, and Alex was right at its heart. The news of the Prime Minister's death sent shockwaves through Stockholm and beyond. The city, usually a model of Scandinavian calm, was now abuzz with speculation and fear. For Alex, the sudden demise of the nation's leader was more than just a headline, it felt like a grim confirmation of the dangers lurking beneath the surface of their investigation. With a mix of dread and resolve, Alex decided to probe into the Prime Minister's death. Officially, it was attributed to natural causes, but the timing was too convenient, too coincidental. Using their press credentials, Alex started to gather information, speaking to anyone who might shed light on the Prime Minister's final days. Their investigation led them to a junior staffer in the Prime Minister's office, a young woman named Sophia, who seemed visibly shaken by recent events. Over a clandestine meeting in a quiet cafe, Sophia confided in Alex that the Prime Minister had been under tremendous stress, worried about a looming threat he never fully disclosed. She mentioned a cryptic note he received days before his death, which seemed to deeply unsettle him. Determined to uncover the truth, Alex dug deeper into the Prime Minister's last weeks. They learned about secret meetings, untraceable phone calls, and a growing sense of paranoia in the Prime Minister's inner circle. It all pointed to something more sinister than a simple heart attack. As Alex pieced together the timeline leading up to the Prime Minister's death, they realized that the murder, if it was indeed a murder, was meticulously planned to look like natural causes. Whoever was behind it had gone to great lengths to cover their tracks. The realization hit Alex like a wave. The group they had been investigating was not just influencing politics from the shadows, they were willing to kill to protect their interests. The death of the Prime Minister was a move in a dangerous game, a game in which Alex was becoming an unwilling participant. The stakes were now painfully clear. Exposing the truth about the Prime Minister's death would not only put Alex in direct conflict with some of the most powerful people in Sweden, but also make them a target. Yet, turning back was not an option. The truth, no matter how dangerous, had to come out. Amidst this turmoil, Alex received another anonymous message, this time a warning. They know you're getting close. Be careful. It was a stark reminder that their investigation had not gone unnoticed. As Alex navigated this treacherous landscape, they knew they needed allies. Trusting anyone was risky, but the journalist understood that facing this shadowy group alone was impossible. The search for truth had to continue, but now, more than ever, caution was paramount. In the shadow of the Prime Minister's death, Alex pressed on, aware that each step brought them closer to a confrontation with forces that would stop at nothing to keep their secrets hidden. The city of Stockholm, once a symbol of peace and transparency, now held a darker, more menacing character in Alex's eyes. The journey into the heart of this conspiracy was just beginning, and the path ahead promised only danger and uncertainty. In the wake of the Prime Minister's mysterious death, Stockholm seemed like a city transformed. The usual tranquility was replaced by a palpable tension, with whispers of conspiracy filling the chilly autumn air. For Alex, every shadow seemed to hide potential danger, every face in the crowd a possible adversary. Despite the mounting risks, Alex pressed on with their investigation. They knew they were being watched, but the need to uncover the truth drove them forward. The journalists started to connect the dots between the Prime Minister's death and the clandestine group they had been investigating. It was a complex web of deceit, spanning the highest levels of government and business. Alex's first major breakthrough came unexpectedly. A confidential source, a low-level government clerk disillusioned with the corruption they witnessed, reached out with crucial information. The clerk provided documents that hinted at a massive cover-up, implicating several top officials in the Prime Minister's death. The documents were a mix of financial records, confidential memos, and cryptic communications, all pointing to a deep-rooted conspiracy. The more Alex delved into these documents, the clearer it became that this was no ordinary political scandal. The group had its tentacles deep in the nation's infrastructure, manipulating events to their benefit. They weren't just influencing policy, they were shaping the very fabric of Swedish society. Fueled by a mix of fear and determination, Alex began to piece together a narrative of manipulation and power. They interviewed insiders, followed leads, and slowly uncovered the extent of the conspiracy. But with every step forward, the danger increased. One evening, as Alex was leaving their office, they narrowly escaped an attack by an unknown assailant. Shaken but unharmed, they realized they were no longer just an observer, they were now a target. The implications were clear. Someone was trying to silence them. Despite the threat to their life, Alex's resolve only strengthened. They knew that exposing this conspiracy was no longer just about journalistic integrity, it was about standing up to those who believed they were above the law. It was a fight for the soul of their country. As the investigation continued, Alex found an unexpected ally in Lena, a seasoned investigative reporter who had been following similar threads. Lena's experience and contacts proved invaluable, and together, they started to fill in the missing pieces of the puzzle. The duo's work led them to a series of secret meetings and covert operations that revealed the group's true agenda. It was a chilling plan to seize control of the country's democratic institutions, turning Sweden into a puppet state controlled by a shadowy cabal. The gravity of their discovery was overwhelming. Alex and Lena knew they had to act fast. The evidence they had gathered was explosive, capable of shaking the foundations of Swedish politics. But releasing it would put them in grave danger. They were standing at the precipice, with the future of their country and their own lives hanging in the balance. The story of Shadow of Stockholm had taken a dark turn, and Alex found themselves at the center of a political storm that threatened to engulf everything they held dear. The chase for truth had become a race against time, with perilous shadows lurking at every turn. Alex and Lena, now allies in their pursuit of the truth, found themselves navigating a labyrinth of lies and deception. The deeper they delved into the conspiracy, the more convoluted and dangerous their path became. They were dealing with a cabal that had infiltrated the very pillars of Swedish society. Their investigation led them to uncover a network of covert operations and financial manipulations. The group was funding their activities through a complex web of shell companies and illegal transactions. This financial trail was like a roadmap to the dark heart of the conspiracy, revealing connections that extended beyond Sweden's borders. As they pieced together the evidence, Alex and Lena realized that they were dealing with more than just domestic corruption. This was a global operation, with ties to foreign powers and multinational corporations. The group's plan was not just to control Sweden, but to use it as a pawn in a larger game of international influence and power. The danger to Alex and Lena escalated with each revelation. They received anonymous threats, warning them to stop their investigation. Their homes and offices were under constant surveillance, and they had to employ counter-surveillance measures to communicate and meet. In one harrowing incident, Lena narrowly escaped an abduction attempt. This close call was a stark reminder of the lengths their adversaries would go to protect their secrets. It was no longer just about intimidation, their lives were in imminent danger. Despite the risks, Alex and Lena pressed on, driven by a sense of duty to their country and the truth. They knew they were the only ones who could expose this conspiracy and prevent the group's nefarious plans from coming to fruition. Their investigation took a significant turn when they managed to secure a meeting with a high-ranking official who was disillusioned with the group's activities. This official, risking their own life, provided key information that connected the dots between the financial crimes, political manipulations, and the Prime Minister's death. This breakthrough gave Alex and Lena the final piece of the puzzle. They now had enough evidence to expose the conspiracy and bring the perpetrators to justice. But they also knew that releasing this information would ignite a political firestorm and put them in the crosshairs of some of the most powerful and dangerous people in the world. With the weight of this responsibility bearing down on them, Alex and Lena prepared to publish their findings. They planned to release a series of articles that would reveal the conspiracy in its entirety, bringing the truth to light. But as they were about to go public with their story, a sudden and unexpected turn of events threw everything into chaos. Lena received a cryptic message, hinting at a deeper layer of the conspiracy that they hadn't yet uncovered. This revelation forced them to reconsider their approach and delve even deeper into the shadows. The labyrinth of lies was more intricate and treacherous than they had ever imagined, and Alex and Lena found themselves at the center of a dangerous maze with no clear way out. The stakes were higher than ever, and the truth was still shrouded in darkness. The journey through the shadow of Stockholm continued, fraught with peril and uncertainty at every turn. Alex and Lena's journey through the tangled web of conspiracy took an even darker turn, following the mysterious message Lena received. This new lead suggested that the group they were investigating was just the surface of a far deeper and more sinister plot. With this revelation, the duo realized that their investigation had only scratched the surface of a global conspiracy. Determined to uncover the full extent of this labyrinthine plot, Alex and Lena delved deeper into the world of espionage and counterintelligence. Their search led them to a network of informants, spies, and double agents, each holding a piece of the puzzle. As they navigated this dangerous terrain, they uncovered evidence of a shadow government operating within the Swedish state. This covert group had been manipulating political and economic events for decades, steering the country towards their own nefarious ends. They had infiltrated key positions in government, industry, and even the media, allowing them to control the narrative and public perception. Alex and Lena's investigation also revealed a chilling connection between the shadow government and international criminal organizations. These alliances were forged in the pursuit of power and profit, disregarding national sovereignty and the rule of law. The deeper Alex and Lena delved into this shadow world, the more perilous their situation became. They were constantly under surveillance, and every move they made was fraught with danger. Their sources were increasingly fearful, and several key informants mysteriously disappeared or met untimely ends. Despite the risks, Alex and Lena pressed on, driven by a commitment to uncover the truth and bring those responsible to justice. They knew that the information they had gathered had the power to topple governments and expose the shadowy figures pulling the strings. In a race against time, Alex and Lena worked to piece together the final parts of the conspiracy. They planned to expose the shadow government and its international connections, revealing the extent of the corruption and manipulation. But as they prepared to publish their findings, they encountered a major obstacle. The media outlets they had counted on to help disseminate the information were compromised, controlled by the very forces they were trying to expose. They realized that traditional means of publication would not be enough. They needed a more direct and impactful way to bring the information to the public. In a bold move, Alex and Lena decided to leak the information to independent journalists and international news organizations. They also made use of digital platforms to bypass the controlled media channels, ensuring that the truth would reach the people unfiltered. As the story broke, it sent shockwaves around the world. Governments, corporations, and intelligence agencies were implicated in the scandal. The revelations triggered a series of investigations, resignations, and public outcry. But the fight was far from over. The shadow government and its allies were not about to relinquish their power easily. They launched a counteroffensive, discrediting the information and targeting Alex and Lena with a smear campaign. Caught in the crossfire of a global power struggle, Alex and Lena faced their greatest challenge yet. They had to navigate the backlash while continuing to uncover more layers of the conspiracy. The tangled webs they sought to unravel were more complex and far-reaching than anyone could have imagined, and their pursuit of the truth had only just begun. The shadow of Stockholm loomed larger than ever, casting a dark pall over their quest for justice and transparency. The release of their explosive findings thrust Alex and Lena into the international spotlight. While their revelations were celebrated by some, they also made the journalists targets of powerful enemies who were implicated in the conspiracy. The backlash was swift and severe. They faced a relentless smear campaign designed to discredit their work and intimidate them into silence. Threats came not just from shadowy figures, but also from those in positions of power who felt threatened by the exposure. Despite the danger, Alex and Lena were determined to continue their investigation. They knew that the conspiracy was even more extensive than they had revealed, and that the true masterminds were still hidden in the shadows. As the pressure mounted, the strain began to take a toll on both journalists. Alex struggled with the constant fear for their safety and the safety of their loved ones. Lena, seasoned and more accustomed to threats, began to feel the weight of a battle that seemed increasingly personal and perilous. Their situation took a turn for the worse when a key informant, who had promised to provide vital evidence, was found dead under mysterious circumstances. It was a stark reminder that they were dealing with people who would stop at nothing to protect their secrets. The informant's death was a breaking point for Alex. They began to question the cost of their pursuit of truth. The constant fear, the threats, and the realization that their efforts might be in vain against such a powerful and entrenched enemy took a heavy mental and emotional toll. Meanwhile, Lena, driven by a deep sense of justice and a personal vendetta against the corrupt powers, pushed even harder. She delved deeper into the network, making risky moves to uncover more evidence. This created a rift between her and Alex, who started to fear that Lena's relentless pursuit was leading them into even greater danger. Amidst this turmoil, Alex made a significant discovery. They stumbled upon a connection between the shadow government and a series of unexplained events that had occurred over the past decade. This new lead suggested that the conspiracy was not just a matter of domestic corruption, but part of a larger, more sinister global agenda. However, before they could fully explore this new lead, Alex and Lena were ambushed by unknown assailants. They narrowly escaped, but the message was clear. They were getting too close to something even bigger than they had imagined. As they regrouped, Alex and Lena realized that they had to change their strategy. They could no longer rely on traditional methods of investigation and reporting. They needed to go underground, to operate in the shadows just like their adversaries. This decision marked a new phase in their journey. They began to work with a network of hackers, activists, and whistleblowers, using unconventional methods to gather information and disseminate it. As they delved deeper into the global aspect of the conspiracy, the story of Shadow of Stockholm became more than just a fight against corruption in Sweden. It was a battle against a dark and powerful force that threatened the very fabric of democracy and freedom around the world. Alex, now more cautious but equally determined, and Lena, fueled by a mix of passion and anger, stood at the forefront of this fight. The path ahead was fraught with danger, but they were committed to shining a light on the darkness, no matter the cost. The shadow of Stockholm had grown long and dark, but they were not yet ready to be consumed by it. Alex and Lena's decision to operate from the shadows marked a drastic shift in their investigation. Working with a network of hackers and activists, they delved into the digital underworld, unearthing information that was inaccessible through conventional means. This new approach allowed them to uncover a series of encrypted communications, financial transactions, and hidden alliances that shed more light on the vast scope of the conspiracy. Their findings revealed a chilling truth. The shadow government was not just a rogue group within Sweden. It was part of a larger, global network that had been manipulating political events, influencing elections, and destabilizing governments for years. This network was composed of elite power players, politicians, business magnates, and intelligence operatives who operated above the law, using their influence to shape the world order according to their interests. As they pieced together the evidence, Alex and Lena uncovered plans for a coordinated series of political and economic shifts that would further consolidate the group's power. These plans included manipulating financial markets, instigating conflicts, and orchestrating regime changes in key countries. The gravity of their discoveries was overwhelming. Alex and Lena realized that they were up against an enemy that had the resources and ruthlessness to change the course of history. The stakes were higher than they had ever imagined, and the danger they faced was more real and imminent than ever before. Their investigation also led them to a shocking revelation about the Prime Minister's death. It was not just a carefully orchestrated murder, but a warning sign of the group's reach and determination to eliminate any threat to their agenda. The Prime Minister had been planning to expose the group's activities, and his death was a message to anyone else who dared to challenge them. Despite the risks, Alex and Lena were more determined than ever to expose the truth. They knew that the information they had was explosive enough to disrupt the global conspiracy and bring its architects to justice. But they also knew that going public with their findings would put them in the crosshairs of some of the most powerful and dangerous people in the world. As they prepared to release their findings, they faced a series of setbacks. Their communication channels were hacked, their informants went silent, and they were constantly under surveillance. It was clear that their adversaries were closing in, trying to silence them before they could reveal the truth. In a desperate move, Alex and Lena planned a covert operation to leak the information to the international press. They enlisted the help of a trusted group of journalists and activists, setting up a series of secure channels to disseminate the evidence. But just as they were about to execute their plan, they were betrayed. One of their closest allies turned out to be a mole, working for the shadow government. In a dramatic confrontation, the mole revealed the true extent of the group's power and reach, warning Alex and Lena that they could never win. Despite the betrayal and the overwhelming odds, Alex and Lena refused to give up. They knew that their fight was not just for themselves, but for the future of democracy and freedom. With renewed resolve, they prepared to make their final stand, ready to face the dark heart of politics and expose the shadowy figures who sought to control the world from behind the scenes. The story of Shadow of Stockholm had reached a critical juncture, and Alex and Lena were at the center of a battle that would determine the fate of nations. The darkness was deep and enveloping, but they were determined to bring light to the shadows, no matter the cost. In the aftermath of the betrayal, Alex and Lena found themselves in an even more precarious position. The mole's revelation had exposed the depth of their infiltration and the extent of their vulnerability. But it also steeled their resolve. They knew that their fight against the shadow government was not just a quest for truth, but a battle for the very essence of democracy and freedom. With the knowledge that they were up against an adversary with almost limitless resources and reach, they changed tactics. They decided to go even further underground, using guerrilla journalism and asymmetric strategies to outmaneuver their opponents. Their plan was to disseminate the information in a way that was too widespread and decentralized for the shadow government to suppress. To do this, they reached out to a global network of independent journalists, hackers, and activists. Together, they orchestrated a simultaneous release of the information across multiple platforms: social media, alternative news sites, and digital forums. They bypassed traditional media channels, which they knew were compromised. As the information flooded the digital space, it created an uproar that resonated around the world. The evidence of corruption, manipulation, and conspiracy sparked protests in various countries, calls for investigations by international bodies, and a crisis of legitimacy for several key figures implicated in the documents. Amidst this chaos, Alex and Lena faced their own personal reckoning. The constant danger and the weight of what they had uncovered took a toll on them, both physically and mentally. Alex grappled with feelings of paranoia and isolation, while Lena was consumed by a relentless drive that strained her relationships and well-being. Despite these challenges, they found moments of light in the darkness. Their efforts had ignited a global conversation about power, transparency, and accountability. They had inspired others to question and challenge the status quo. And in their most private moments, they found solace in each other's shared purpose and unyielding commitment to the cause. However, their victory was short-lived. The shadow government, in a display of its formidable influence, managed to quell the unrest and discredit much of the information. Using a combination of propaganda, disinformation, and coercion, they regained control of the narrative. Realizing that they were fighting a Hydra-like enemy, Alex and Lena understood that exposing the conspiracy was not enough. They needed to find the linchpin, the key element that held the network together. Their search led them to a mysterious figure known only as the Architect, believed to be the mastermind behind the global conspiracy. Determined to unmask the Architect and dismantle the network, Alex and Lena embarked on a dangerous journey that took them across borders and into the heart of darkness. They encountered allies and enemies, faced moral dilemmas, and navigated complex situations that tested their limits. As they drew closer to their goal, they realized that the Architect was not just a person, but a symbol of a more profound and insidious force: the human propensity for power and control. They confronted the harsh truth that even if they succeeded in their mission, the struggle against such forces was eternal. In the final confrontation, Alex and Lena came face to face with the Architect, leading to a dramatic and unexpected resolution. The encounter forced them to confront the shadows within themselves and the world around them. The story of Shadow of Stockholm ended not with a definitive victory, but with a nuanced reflection on the nature of power, the complexity of truth, and the enduring struggle for light in a world shrouded in shadows. Alex and Lena's journey transformed them, leaving an indelible mark on their lives and a legacy that would continue to inspire others to seek the truth, no matter how obscured it might be by the shadows. The confrontation with the architect marked a pivotal moment in Alex and Lena's journey. The figure, enigmatic and influential, was not just the mastermind behind the conspiracy, but also a symbol of the pervasive corruption and manipulation that they had been fighting against. The encounter was less a physical confrontation and more a battle of wits and ideals, a clash between the desire for power and the pursuit of truth. In the aftermath, Alex and Lena faced a world that was both enlightened and disillusioned. Their revelations had shattered the illusion of a just and orderly world, exposing the deep-rooted corruption that lay beneath. But it had also sparked a global movement for change. People across the world, empowered by the truth, began to demand accountability and transparency from their leaders. The release of their findings had a profound impact. High-ranking officials were forced to resign, criminal investigations were launched in multiple countries, and there was a renewed push for reforms in international governance. The shadow government's network began to unravel, its members exposed and its operations disrupted. However, the victory was bittersweet. Alex and Lena had paid a high price for their pursuit of the truth. They had sacrificed their safety, their personal lives, and their peace of mind. The journey had left them changed, more aware of the complexities and shades of gray that defined the world of politics and power. Despite the global impact of their revelations, they knew that the fight was far from over. The roots of corruption and manipulation ran deep, and there would always be those who sought to operate from the shadows. But they had also shown that even the most powerful could be held accountable, that the truth could be a potent weapon against tyranny. As they reflected on their journey, Alex and Lena realized that their story was part of a larger narrative, a continuous struggle for truth and justice in a world fraught with darkness and deceit. They had shone a light on the shadowy corners of power, but there would always be new shadows to confront. The story of Shadow of Stockholm ended with a note of cautious optimism. Alex and Lena had revealed a world that was more complex and challenging than they had ever imagined, but they had also inspired hope. Their journey was a testament to the power of resilience, the importance of questioning the status quo, and the enduring quest for light in a world of shadows. Their story resonated with people everywhere, serving as a reminder that the pursuit of truth was not just the responsibility of journalists, but of every individual. It was a call to remain vigilant, to question, and to never stop seeking the light, even in the darkest of times. The shadow of Stockholm would linger, but so too would the spark of change that Alex and Lena had ignited. In the wake of the groundbreaking revelations brought about by Shadow of Stockholm, the world seemed to pause, taking a moment to grasp the full implications of what had been exposed. The aftermath of Alex and Lena's daring investigation was far-reaching, sending ripples across the globe. For Sweden, it was a period of introspection and upheaval. The exposure of the shadow government led to a sweeping overhaul of the political landscape. Public trust in the government had been deeply shaken, prompting widespread calls for reform. New elections were held, bringing in a wave of leaders who promised transparency and change. Investigations into corruption and collusion were launched, leading to numerous arrests and trials. Internationally, the revelations had a similar impact. Countries implicated in the conspiracy faced their own crises, with protests, resignations, and policy changes. The global conversation shifted towards issues of privacy, surveillance, and the unchecked power of elite groups. For Alex and Lena, the aftermath was a mix of triumph and exhaustion. They had achieved what many thought impossible, but the cost had been high. They grappled with newfound fame and the responsibilities it brought. They were hailed as heroes by some and seen as troublemakers by others. Their personal lives had been irrevocably altered, with both facing threats and scrutiny. Despite the chaos, there were positive developments. The revelation sparked a renewed interest in investigative journalism. News organizations around the world saw a surge in support and resources, leading to a golden era of journalism. Alex and Lena's work inspired a new generation of journalists, dedicated to uncovering the truth and holding the powerful accountable. However, the shadow government's influence had not been completely eradicated. Remnants of the network lingered, adapting and evolving in the face of exposure. Alex and Lena knew that vigilance was necessary to prevent the resurgence of such forces. As they moved forward, Alex and Lena took different paths. Lena, energized by the success of their investigation, continued her work as an investigative journalist, tackling new stories and exposing injustices. Alex, on the other hand, chose to step away from the front lines. The ordeal had taken a personal toll, and they needed time to reflect and heal. The story of Shadow of Stockholm concluded with a sense of closure, but also an acknowledgement of the ongoing struggle. The victory against the shadow government was significant, but the fight for truth and justice was never ending. Alex and Lena's journey had changed them and the world in ways they could never have imagined. Their story stood as a testament to the power of perseverance and courage in the face of overwhelming odds. It was a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the light of truth could prevail. The shadow of Stockholm had been lifted, but its legacy would endure, a beacon of hope in the never-ending battle against the forces of darkness and deceit. As the dust settled on the events unleashed by the shadow of Stockholm, the city itself seemed to reflect a new era of uncertainty and change. Stockholm, once a symbol of stability and order, now carried the weight of its recent history, a place where the greatest political scandal of the era had unfolded. For Alex, the aftermath was a period of introspection and readjustment. They had stepped away from the limelight, choosing to find solace in quieter, more reflective pursuits. The journey had left its mark on them, instilling a deeper understanding of the complexities of power and the fragility of democratic institutions. Though no longer on the front lines, Alex remained committed to the cause, mentoring young journalists and advocating for press freedom and transparency. Lena, ever the relentless seeker of truth, continued her investigative work, albeit with a newfound sense of caution and awareness of the dangers lurking in the shadows. She became a leading figure in journalism, her name synonymous with integrity and courage. Despite the risks, she remained dedicated to exposing corruption and injustice, her resolve strengthened by the events of the past. Stockholm, for its part, underwent a transformation. The scandal had prompted a societal reckoning, with vigorous debates and reforms aimed at restoring public trust and accountability. New safeguards were put in place to prevent the concentration of unchecked power, and there was a renewed emphasis on civic education and engagement. Internationally, the ripple effects of the scandal continued to be felt. Governments and institutions around the world implemented measures to combat corruption and enhance transparency. The story of Shadow of Stockholm had sparked a global movement towards greater accountability and vigilance against the forces that threatened democracy. Yet, the shadow of uncertainty lingered. The dismantling of the shadow government had left a power vacuum, and new challenges emerged. Geopolitical shifts, economic upheavals, and the rise of digital surveillance posed fresh threats to global stability and individual freedoms. In this changing landscape, the lessons of Shadow of Stockholm remained more relevant than ever. It was a reminder of the eternal vigilance required to safeguard democracy and the need for courageous individuals to stand up against corruption and abuse of power. The story concluded not with a definitive ending, but as a chapter in an ongoing narrative. The struggle between light and darkness, truth and deceit, was a continuous battle, waged in the hearts and minds of individuals and on the global stage. Alex and Lena, each in their own way, continued to contribute to this struggle, their lives forever intertwined with the city that had been the epicenter of a pivotal moment in history. Stockholm, with its blend of historic charm and modern resilience, stood as a symbol of this enduring fight, a city that had witnessed the shadow of conspiracy and the dawn of a new awareness. Shadow of Stockholm thus ended on a note of hopeful uncertainty, a tribute to the enduring spirit of those who seek the truth, and a call to action for future generations to continue the fight against the forces that threaten the light of democracy and freedom. Years had passed since the tumultuous events of the Shadow of Stockholm. The city, once rocked by the seismic revelations of Alex and Lena's investigation, had found a new rhythm, a balance between remembering its past and moving towards its future. Stockholm streets, lined with a blend of historic architecture and modern design, echoed with the vibrant energy of a city reborn. The political scandal that had once shaken the nation to its core was now a part of its history, a sobering reminder of the vigilance needed to protect the values of democracy and transparency. In this new era, Stockholm had become a beacon of reform and resilience. The sweeping changes in governance and policy instituted in the aftermath of the scandal had transformed Sweden into a model of ethical leadership and civic engagement. Educational initiatives had been launched to foster a culture of critical thinking and accountability, ensuring that future generations would be equipped to uphold the principles of a free and fair society. Alex, older and wiser, had become something of an elder statesman in the world of journalism. Their experience during the Shadow of Stockholm saga had turned them into a respected figure in the fight for press freedom and integrity. Although they had stepped back from active investigation, their guidance and mentorship shaped a new generation of journalists, instilling in them the courage and commitment to seek the truth. Lena, meanwhile, continued to be a formidable force in investigative journalism. Her relentless pursuit of justice and her unwavering dedication had earned her numerous accolades. She had authored several books, sharing her experiences and insights, and remained a vocal advocate for accountability and ethical governance. As Stockholm thrived, the impact of Alex and Lena's work was still felt around the world. The legacy of their investigation had inspired global initiatives to combat corruption and promote transparency. International collaborations had been established to monitor and counteract the influence of shadowy entities in global politics. Yet, the journey was far from over. The world continued to face new challenges and threats to freedom and democracy. Technology, with its ever-expanding reach, brought both opportunities and dangers, and the balance between security and privacy remained a contentious issue. In the heart of Stockholm, a small museum had been established to commemorate the Shadow of Stockholm investigation. It served as a testament to the power of truth and the resilience of those who fight for it. Visitors from across the globe came to learn about the story, drawing inspiration and lessons from the events that had unfolded in this remarkable city. The epilogue of Shadow of Stockholm closed with a sense of cautious optimism. While the shadows of the past had been dispelled, the vigilance against new threats continued. Stockholm, once a battleground for truth, now stood as a symbol of hope and renewal. A reminder that even in the darkest of times, the light of truth and the spirit of resilience could pave the way for a new dawn.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the video. We highly recommend you watch the next video here. Oops. I'm waiting for you to click. Yes, you've clicked. Happy watching.